Bonjour, Kinamagi Nene Ireland and Dishnikas, and welcome to this morning's episode from Social Studies Explorer. Today's episode, People in the Revolution, Part 1. Learning about history is not as simple as just reading a textbook or watching a YouTube video or sitting down with a bowl of popcorn and watching the History Channel or any other network for that matter. It requires you to wear different hats, ask a lot of questions. When we talk about people, and in this case, the context of End the Revolution, we need to have historical empathy. It means we need to explore the feelings and actions. We have to kind of put ourselves in the shoes of these individuals and groups. And you can see that several of these groups are women, enslaved African Americans, free African Americans, American Indians, loyalists, patriots, people living in the frontier, Quakers, all groups that had different views on what was going on as far as the revolution. Some of these groups were very pro independence. Some of these groups were anti war. Some of these groups were pro staying in a union with Great Britain. Some of these groups just wanted people to stay off their land. And others, they wanted freedom, no matter which side it was that may win the war. So we need to be able to kind of think about what was life like for those individuals and groups and be able to judge their actions using that. It's a very difficult thing sometimes to do in history. We look at a lot of the things like, well, I wouldn't do that. Well, that's great. But 300 years ago, the world was a different place. 30 years ago, the world was a different place. And sometimes 3 days ago could be a different place when we have those seminal moments in history. So, what I ask of you is to kind of think about the perspective of those individuals when considering why did they make the choices they did or the choices they didn't make. It's hard to do, but it'll give you a better understanding of how all of the pieces of history play into each other. The historical perspective is exploring those points of view, and that's very much related to that empathy. Those points of view are going to be based on their feelings, how they viewed the world around them. It's all put together. It will also allow you to be a more critical thinker when it comes to studying history. We will definitely come up on things that are upsetting. And you ask yourself, why did the people do what they did? And it's a good question to answer. We don't want history to repeat itself, but we also want to understand why it happened in the first place. Historical empathy, trying to understand the actions and thoughts of people in the past. Perspective, trying to understand the point of view. And neutral is not taking one side or the other. And the example there, many Native American nations stayed neutral during the American Revolution. They didn't ally with the British, nor did they ally with the Continentals. Today, you're going to have an activity. We're going to study about George Washington. You're going to take the time to try to answer these questions. How did George Washington feel about the American Revolution? What do you think he was thinking? How did he feel? What were some of George Washington's actions relating to the American Revolution? What did he do? So this is what did he feel? This is what did he do? Describe one way in which his feelings and his actions were related. So, one is a time that his feelings led him to action. What was his point of view regarding the revolution? Now, that may be why did he choose the side that he did? And what helped shape his point of view? What contributed to making him think the way he did? If you have the opportunity to work with a partner, you should. You are encouraged to do such. You may also choose to work independently. You may use support or the Michigan Open Book to support your answers. You may use our lectures. You may use Google. However, do be careful, as in some links are better than others. So look at the credibility of the site as well. There will be a Google form that also has these questions. And then you can see some possible answers there. And we'll talk about those in another session. But we're going to get the remainder of your social studies time today answering those questions. Make sure if you're doing the paper copy that it's brought back to me. This is the paper copy. Make sure if you are doing the Google form that you also hit submit at the end. If you have any questions, feel free to email me and I will do my best to guide you on whatever question it may be. At this point, it's time for the you do. If you have any questions, do reach out. Have a minno gizigad. Meanwhile, Pamapi.